Good evening. My name is Charlene Reinders, and I am honored to be the program director for the League of Women Salt Lake. I want to welcome our speakers and our panelist speakers to the important message that we're giving tonight, and that is local government where saving democracy begins. So welcome to our guests. We have guests in person here, and we also have guests online. We like to start our meetings with a land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that we are gathering on Indigenous land. The Salt Lake Valley has always been a gathering place for Indigenous peoples, and we acknowledge that this land, which is named for the Ute people, is the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute nations, and is a crossroad for Indigenous peoples. We pay respect to the elders past and present. And we also consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that are our history and legacy, and seek to uncover the truth. For 105 years, the League of Women Voters has been a nonpartisan, activist, grassroots organization that believes voters should play a critical role in democracy. We encourage informed and active participation in government, work to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influence public policy through education and advocacy. Simply put, our mission is to empower voters and defend democracy. Tonight's topic is in perfect alignment with our mission. We are keeping members and our guests informed and encouraging engagement with local government officials, which enables us to influence public policy and hold them accountable. So we would like to, if there are any new members in the audience, either in the live audience or in Zoom, would you just stand up and raise your hand? Okay, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, awesome, thank you. And Lee, did we have any raised hands on Zoom? Not yet, okay. Well, we have, since the beginning of this year, we have had 177 new members. So that's amazing. And that statistic was from a couple of weeks ago. So it could even be more than that now. So welcome. No, we can't stop there. So a recording of tonight's event will be made available to the public on the League of Women Voters of Salt Lake website and on our social media. Other recordings of this event, whether they be in person or on a device, may not be used without the express written approval of the League. The League will only allow audio video of this event to be broadcast in its entirety, except by the media reporting on the event. So we will move to the agenda. We are first going to have a discussion by our panelists. After the panelists are finished with their discussions, we will have a Q&A from the audience, both in person and online. And then we will conclude with some league announcements, short league announcements. So I'll turn it now over to our moderators. We have 2 moderators tonight. This is Betty Van Pelt. Betty is the chair of the Salt Lake League Observer Corps. And Susan Sandak, raise your hand, Susan. Susan is a Observer Corps volunteer extraordinaire. So we thank you. So I believe that you are going to go first, Betty.
Yep, I'm up. I will be introducing the speakers. So as I get to your little bio, let them know which, well, I guess your names are there. So never mind. But thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you giving your time up for this. Cindy Wood was selected to fill the West Valley City District 4 council member vacancy on January 28th, 2025. She was planning commissioner on the West Valley City Planning Commission from April 2017 through January 2025. She grew up in Magna, graduating from Cypress High School. She earned a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting at the University of Utah. She has more than 20 years experience in law firm administration and accounting. She is a licensed certified public accountant and began her career in public accounting and then as CFO for several Utah industrial banks. She is a member of Utah Association of CPAs. Cindy and her husband, Evan, have lived in West Valley for 38 years. She has 3 children and 3 grandchildren. Anne Granato, sorry about that, is a business owner and Medicaid specialist for the state of Utah and a dedicated public servant. In January this year, she completed a 7-year term on the Salt Lake County Council representing District 4. She and her family own Granato's Gourmet Market in business and public service and credits working with her late husband, Sam Granato. Together, they are committed to strengthening community. Being a Medicaid specialist has informed Anne's legislative priorities about health and social services, availability and mental health treatment, resources, affordable housing as interlinked issues, and economic development opportunities for future generations. During her tenure as Salt Lake County Council member, Anne is most proud having initiated the Cox Granato Apprenticeship Program, designed for women to develop skills in trade industries with the strategy of building stronger, more resilient communities. The Cox Granato Apprenticeship Program provides a career path that has longevity, benefits, and chances for advancement. Natalie Pinkney, who's joining us via Zoom, began her term in January of 2025 as the at-large council member for Salt Lake County. With that responsibility, she currently serves on the Clark Planetarium Board, Library Board, Emergency Management Advisory Commission, and the Council of Governments Board. Natalie earned a bachelor's degree in psychology from Marquette University and a master's degree in educational leadership and policy from the University of Utah. Her governance priorities center on families, focusing on housing, homelessness, childcare, and financial empowerment. Her public service began on the Salt Lake City Council, serving 5 years as vice chair and on the South Salt Lake Arts Council. Her efforts in South Salt Lake earned her accolades such as the South Salt Lake City Council Champion Award, the Democratic Believer Award, and the Malcolm X Award for Social Justice. Outside of public office, Natalie is the publisher of the Priestess magazine. She and her husband, along with their beloved cats, live in the riverfront neighborhood of South Salt Lake. Troy Walker, Draper City Mayor, serves Draper in many ways, including conducting council meetings and appointing key city leadership positions and members of city committees and commissions. Mayor Walker works closely with the city, county, and state governments, representing Draper City's interest and serving on several integral boards, including as president of the Utah League of Cities and Towns, Lone Peak Hospital Board, Wasatch Front Regional Council, and more. Before becoming mayor, Troy served as a Draper City Council member, assistant district attorney for the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office, and co-chair of Draper Days Park events. He has received the Mayor Best of State Award twice. In addition to his public service, he practices law full-time. He's an avid mountain biker, loves coaching his sons, and has a commercial pilot's license. Now I will pass it on to Susan.
Thank you. I'm Susan Sandak, and I am the Observer Corps volunteer for all of Salt Lake County's council meetings. Betty will give us a description of how the Observer Corps works in terms of all the, I think there are now, what, 18 cities and townships and metros and municipalities in this county. And we'd love to have a volunteer covering the entire county when we can. In the meantime, that's my role, and I go to those meetings or virtually or in person every week. And this evening, because our topic has to do with local government where saving democracy begins, we would like the conversation to be about building relationships. We all know that building relationships is what we need to do in our personal and professional lives in order to be successful and grow together. And sometimes it's curious to me covering the meetings I cover, and I know some of the observers in the cities around the county might be unsure or unclear of their ability and position in building those relationships. So we want to hear from you people. 10 or 15 minutes about building relationships with your constituents and they with you. What are some of the best practices? What works and what doesn't work to build a good, strong relationship? And I'd like to ask each of you to try to include in that time period, because you're people first, something fun about you that we didn't include in these bios. And when I say fun, it doesn't have to be, you know, if you're not fun, don't worry about it. But maybe it's something surprising we'd like to know about you, because those are the kinds of things that connect us. That's a starting point for our building relationships with you. And if you do have a chance to describe how that works in your field, in your vision and worldview on relationship building, I'd love to hear some candid comments about whether or not you feel you have constituents who are following you and are comfortable there. And if you do, tell us why that's working. And if you don't, tell us why you think that's not working. So let's start. Actually, I think in order, we're going to start with you, Ann Granato. And can I just make another quick transition? When I first started my coverage of Salt Lake County, Ann was my district representative in District 4. And I felt like for me to build the relationship with her, I got to call her. And boy, was she responsive. And what does contra account mean? And who do I contact on the staff to tell them that the video is not working properly? And she'd respond and we build a relationship about that. I consider her my friend. So Ann, you start.
Okay. Now bear in mind that I am now speaking in the rearview mirror because I have gone back to my job at the state. But it was an interesting experience. My husband had been involved in politics and in community service for 35 years. He loved every minute of it. He was a people person and he loved getting out in the community. Everybody knew him. Everybody responded to him. So I had that experience when I assumed his place on the county council and then served for 6.5 years. So that was important. It was a family thing. people don't often realize how much time the family of the public servant puts in to this endeavor. They spend a lot of time alone. They participate a lot. They may even take a little bit of flack when the public servant does something they don't like. So family is very important to the public servant. Something fun, I have 10 grandchildren. I have a sign in my kitchen that says, "Grandchildren welcome, parents by appointment only." So a little bit about building relationships. A lot of that is personality. And Sam just had an open, loving, everybody's my buddy personality. Sometimes if you're a little more reticent, you have to learn to build those relationships. When it says all government, all local government is the best government, that is absolutely true because they are the most involved in local issues. The city governments are looking at the roads. They're looking at zoning issues. They're looking at where do we want to build things and how do we want to manage our community. And your constituents know where you live. So that helps a lot. If they can deal with you on a friendly basis, that makes all the difference. We were laughing tonight, ever since COVID, Zoom meetings have been a real thing. But it's nice to be able to look people right in the eye and respond to them. They can tell by your facial expression if you're paying attention. So it's very important to make one-on-one connections with people. A little bit about approach. I've said for years that Richard Nixon said the majority of people live in a silent majority. And unfortunately, I think we're getting to the point where the majority of people in politics are now living in the exhausted majority. And while the central position is what people respond to most in the majority, it's defined by what's happening on the right and on the left. You don't know what your central position is until you know what the right and the left are bringing to the table. And then you come to the middle. And it's most important for a good situation with your constituents to know what they think. Put out surveys. Go to public events. Mill Creek does a venture out all summer long. So meet the people where they live. That is most important. You can't always get the flavor of what's happening unless you're right there in the middle. I will say one thing about local government that we noticed. You've got to be aware that there is a level of government above you. And one example, Jenny Wilson always was great to respond to people. And we had a request when I was on the council by vendors that rent county functions to put into our rules that you could not bring guns. It was in their contracts for places that they rented. Jenny did a lot of heavy lifting. She did a lot of face-to-face. She did a lot of constructive discussion with people. She put in place policy that we would not have guns in the public buildings that the county managed and rented. The legislature immediately swooped in and did away with that. So yes, all government is local. Yes, making contacts with your constituents is critical, but be aware there is a level of government above you that may come out and defeat what your best laid plans are. I'm assuming we're doing questions at the end.
Yes. I mean, you can ask each other questions.
Oh.
Yes.
Having could be a real conversation.
Okay.
Do you want to pick up where that left off, or just go with
Well,
what you
I'd
want,
just like
how
to
you
go
want
with what,
start?
yeah.
Do that.
So I'm kind of a newbie at all of this. Is the mic on?
Yes.
Okay. So she was talking about something interesting. So I'm a CPA. There's not much interesting about that. Other than I do count my steps everywhere I go because I'm just a numbers person. You can ask my family and each finger represents 500 steps. And then, yeah, anyway, so yeah, I don't know if that's interesting or not, but it's interesting how I came into this position. So as mentioned, I was on the Planning Commission in West Valley for 8 years. And when you're on Planning Commission, you go into a lot more detail than you actually do at a city council level. You're looking more at, what's really going on in the community, even down to conditional use permits and landscaping, those types of things. So when the seat came open, a prior council member won a House seat. And so the council seat for District 4 came open. And I talked with the mayor, Karen Lang, and we talked back and forth, and she goes, you ought to go for it. You ought to apply for it. So it was an open interview in front of the city council. There were 15 applicants, 12 men and 3 women. And we had 3 minutes to pitch ourselves to the city council, and then we answered 2 questions. And at the end of the 15 people, there was a vote taken. And the first vote came through and I got 3 of the 6 votes. And 3 other people got 1 vote each. And so I made it through the next round, and then they brought the 3 people up, and it was a coin toss between 2 candidates, whoever won, the most 2 out of 3 rounds, then went against the second candidate person. And then whoever went in there advanced to come up against me again. So, and that is a state deal. I watched it happen in Bidvello as well. That's how their mayor was chosen to fill a vacancy. So at the end, it was me against another applicant, or I guess, what do you want to say? And I came through. So I got 5 of the 6 votes. And I'll tell you what, that was one of my first things. I wanted to find out who did not vote for me. So, and I've now swayed him to my way. But what an honor it is to serve on a city council, and ever in a million years would I have thought would do this. I'm pretty much a reserved person. Accountants kind of are like that. But I care about my community, and I'm a West Sider. I've lived on the West Side my entire life. The furthest east I've lived is 3200 West. And I always said I lived on the east side of Magna, because I did live on the east side of Magna. But growing up on the west side, there's unique issues and unique things about a West Side community. And West Valley City itself is a unique community. Diversity like you would not believe. And I value that as an asset of the city, is the diversity of our city. So there's a strong Polynesian presence. There's a strong Latino presence. There's, you can find every ethnicity that you want to find. And I feel like that it contributed to my children being all around good people, because they dealt with all sorts of people when they're growing up. Something interesting about me is I don't do anything in a traditional sense. So I enrolled in the University of Utah right after I graduated from high school. And 11 years later, I graduated. So I married late in life by Utah standards. I had my first child later in life by Utah standards. And I've joined the city council later in life. I think it's great. As far as this being local government, being the closest form of government to the people, as I've been out talking to people, they always want to bring in national things. What are you going to do about our taxes? What are we doing about immigration? What's your stance on this? And I always try to bring it back to, well, what can I do for you in West Valley City? Because it is an important thing to drill back down to, what can I do for you? And for your constituents to know that they can reach out to you. Like you said, you're their neighbor. I see them at the grocery store. I know who they are. I know who their kids are. Chances are someone went to Cypress High School that knows one of my siblings. So it's the closest way that people can get to a government official, but that also holds us to a higher level of accountability. And that is something that I really respect and want to provide for the people in District 4 and the city is to be accountable. I want to know that they can call me on something, and I have been called on things. But I think it's very important that you're accessible so that you can be accountable. As far as the immediate impact on being on a city council, a lot of decisions we make affect everybody that lives there. Recently at a city council meeting, we had a resident come and talk about a property tax increase. And she was concerned because the increase was going to have a huge impact on if she could pay other bills. To me, it seemed like a small nominal amount. To her, it didn't. So that's something as a city's official, your empathy really comes out, and the decisions you make really affects those people. The challenges of serving on a local government, probably one of my biggest challenges has been breaking into the city council. They'd all been on there for a while, and they know, I mean, I know of things that have happened, but I don't know the details. So I have until this term's up that I can pull the newbie card and say, hey, I'm the new person here. Can you go back and explain to me what has happened? And I have to do some legwork beforehand, whatever's on the agenda, to figure that out. Another challenge of serving on a local government is communicating with people and hopefully educating them on what is under the city's control and what isn't in our control. So Mountain View Corridor flows through West Valley from 6200 South to 201. On either side's West Valley, but it's not a West Valley road. It's a state road. The speed limit's 65 miles an hour through the middle of West Valley. There's major accidents, there's noise, there's everything. And they want me as a city council member to fix that. And so that's a challenge because I'd like to fix it. And, you know, I'm concerned about them. The noise, I've gone and visited in their yards, you know, listen to that noise I have to hear, you know. So part of that is educating them on what I do have control over. Now we can have conversations with UDOT and other agencies that are over that and hopefully get those things solved. The other thing that has been a challenge is that people think they're an expert on a lot of things and they want to tell you what they know. And so I always try to bring that back to what can I do for you? That type of thing. So that's been a challenge. And then bringing my priorities to the council, priorities of the residents in my district. I'm the southwest part. I actually have areas in my district that go off of Bacchus Highway. There's a little part out there that you would think would be West Jordan. I saw the West Jordan mayor come in, but it's West Valley. There's another area, Diamond Summit, that's totally disconnected from the city. So it's a big district and it covers a lot of different economic standards, brand new $1 million homes to, you know, 100-year-old homes in my district as well. So that's been a challenge. But the hardest part being West Valley Council member is serving this diverse community and paying attention to all of their needs. So I always want to stay authentic. I want to be that person that will represent them. I want to stay accountable. And I want to stay approachable. And I want to be responsive. And so those are my goals as a member of City Council. So hopefully I answered some things that you asked me to do.
You certainly did. And I'm going to have a big question for all of you at the end. I love hearing this because it has to do with keeping track of how often you are in touch with your constituents and have to then relay that information during an important decision at a council meeting. Troy, you're next.
Well, thank you. It's great to be with you. And I love to talk about politics and what's going on in our great country right now. And I think that I can't remember who said it, but Ann said it earlier, all politics is local. And I hear that and I know that's a case, but a lot of this national politics I hate. And so when they try to put national politics in my local politics, I'm somewhat resistant to it because I think all politics is local, but I think what we do as local leaders is we deliver government that is it is the closest to you. You're going to drive on a road that we've probably fixed a pothole, I hope. You're going to call for a police officer if you ever need one that we've put in place and trained. You're going to hopefully never need a firefighter, but if you do, they're going to be there in a certain short number of minutes to save you from that heart attack or your house on fire. And so those are the things that I just try to focus on and care about. I've had a unique journey through politics. I have an accounting degree from the University of Utah. I'm not an accountant. I'm a lawyer, which is probably a twisting of the accounting world. And I went to law school fully intending to be a tax lawyer. This was my goal. I took one tax class in law school and I thought, no, I don't want to do that. I took one public, what they would call a public law class where we would assist as students, assist people with real legal problems. And I got to try a case to a jury as a second, third year law student. And I liked that. So I left accounting and in tax law and went to, I've been a trial lawyer my entire career, and I've been practicing law for about, I think it's my 29th year. I've been a criminal defense lawyer for most of my career. And so as a person who was brought up by Republican parents, I was raised in the Army. My dad is as Republican as, he's the true Ronald Reagan Republican. My parents were very conservative growing up, and I was raised on military bases all across the country and the world. I didn't live off of a military post until I was 15. So I've lived everywhere and I've been around. And so I had a different politics as a young person. I was in high school. I was a conservative Republican young person. And I figured I understood everything and I knew how it all worked at 16, 17, and 18. I got a little bit older and realized I didn't know how it all worked. But as a lawyer and coming from that kind of conservative, if you will, perspective, I started defending real live human beings. People like all of us have in our families that get in trouble, because every family's got one. I mean, I don't care who you are. I don't care how much church you go to. I don't care where you spend your weekends. One of your family members or more will do something stupid, get arrested, and need some help. And I learned early on that all the people I represented, because it's Utah, and for the most part, it's people that were somewhat like me. They've had families like me. They all went to church like me or whatever it was, but they all got in trouble. And then as you represent people that are in their worst time in life, you start to see how different philosophies and how different policies might be better than the way you thought it was. You see a need for mental health services. You see a need for, good criminal justice services where we don't always want to incarcerate everyone as the solution. You start to see how it affects individual people in their lives and families. And I've always enjoyed it because, some of them are heartbreaking cases and some of them are difficult, and some people go to prison, and some people, you see all the gamut and you watch it affects the person, that affects their relatives, that affects their employers, their friends. And so I got that perspective as I started practicing law. And I think it's sort of helped me broaden my perspective a little bit as to about what we should be about as a country and the way we should treat each other and the compassion we should have with each other. And so as I've moved along, I ran for office first and I lost. And I was like, well, that's it. I'm out of politics. And my wife's like, are you a loser? Are you going to be a loser? And I'm like, well, I didn't like that. So I thought, well, she's like, we ought to run again. So I ran again and I won as a council member. And you talk about communicating and the relationships. So when you become a council member, and you're right, when you're the new person and they've been doing it for a while, and it's always the case somewhere, the details of why things got done and they're there. You don't know them, and some of them you'll never know, but you have to learn how to get along with that council. So that was the first lesson, was learning how to get along with different council members. And some council members are difficult, and some aren't. And you get the whole gamut of, I've experienced it all. And I know I've been the difficult council member myself. I know I can be quite difficult if I want to be. But that learning those relationships as council members, because like I always tell people as mayor, you can want in one hand and hope in another, but if you don't have two more votes, you don't have anything. You know, I used to have one council member that always come to me and say, hey, mayor, I want to get this. I want to do this. I'm like, all right, who's your second vote? Well, I don't really have one yet. I'm like, all right, stop talking to me. At least get a second vote, you know, and then he'd come and he'd say, I got 2 votes. I'm like, well, who's your third? Well, I don't have a third. Like, you don't have anything then, you know? So it was interesting, that relationship as a council member. If I wanted something, I had to learn how to communicate with my fellow council members in a way that, you know, you can work together. In Draper, we're all at large. So we don't have districts. So you run as a council member to the whole city. So and it's interesting, we're one of the few cities like that, but you don't get to horse trade one district to the next over things. Every decision you make gets full scrutiny. And so I did it for 6 years and I liked it. But I always wanted to be an airline pilot. That was my dream. I wanted to be one since I was a little boy. I got all trained and I got hired by American Airlines. This was in 2009. And I came home and I went down to this simulator training, got hired. I was so excited. I was like, this is going to be it. I'm going to keep practicing law on the side, but I'm going to fly jets. And so my wife's like, this is great. So I said, I'll see you in about 6 weeks. I'm going back down to Dallas to train. And a week later I was home and she's like, what are you doing back? And I'm like, I got fired. I didn't get fired. I got laid off because the financial crisis of 2009 hit. And you want to talk about, you know, I was old enough then, I had a job and a mortgage and all those things. That financial crisis was legitimate and real, and bam. And I was like, whoa, this country's we have issues now. And so I ran for mayor. But as I became mayor, I realized not only did I have to keep working with those council members, I had to expand my circle of people I had to have relationships with to other mayors in other cities. And I got my dear friend Dirk Burton back there. We all represent our own cities, but we come together as mayors to talk about the things that affect our cities and that we can have influence. The League of Cities and Towns is a lobbying entity. It's a lobbying group. That's what we do. Instead of all of us little cities hiring our own lobbyists, and we still sometimes do that, but we come together, all 258, 256 townships and cities, and we join the league. We have an executive staff. And what we do is look out for each other at that legislature. And so you expand your circle and you have to build relationships with other mayors and other council members to get into the league business and to work on the league board and get to sort of represent us as a larger group. And that's been interesting. But again, it's all about relationships and personalities coming together. You have to be able to see somebody else's perspective, obviously, and be able to open your mind to maybe they have a good point, maybe you're not right, and hey, maybe we can compromise. I'm a firm believer in the compromise. I think that's what America is. To me, everything gets done in the middle. Anything good, it all gets done when everyone's had something to say about it, and it works. As a league, as local officials, and all of your cities have members, we do all that we can with our legislature. There's no legislators here, right? I got to watch. No, this is where I get myself in trouble. Our goal at the league is to help the state remember when we say the phrase local control, what it really means to the legislature is state control, but what it means to your neighbor is me and your council member, that we try to keep the focus on, everybody lives in a neighborhood. Everybody has a neighbor. Everybody has a piece of property that's not yet developed next to them, or one that wants to change. And local control means we listen to those things, and we sometimes have to make a tough call, but we at least they get heard by someone who they know is living the same dream they are. I live in my city like everybody else. So if we put a store in over here, it's going to affect me too. And I have to remind people all the time that, I think sometimes constituents think the damn city's over here doing all this. We don't live there. And so we're somehow not affecting our own selves with our decisions. We are, and we know that. And so it's tough sometimes. We have to make a decision to put a store where it needs to go, and we're going to have traffic because there's always going to be traffic, things like that. But as you expand your circle of friendships and relationships, then you get a little more influence. And then you come back to, no matter what your elected office is, you have to deal with your constituents. And so everybody has an approach to how they do that. And the way I do it, and I'm just how I am. And I've tried to change lots, but I haven't succeeded. I'm direct. I will tell you what I think, and I'll tell you what I'm willing to do. And I'm not the guy that's going to say, I'll think about it and get back to you. I rarely do that. I probably should more. But the way I deal with our constituents, and people know if they come and see me, if it's something I can help them or something I think government should do, because there's so many things like some of you touched on, government has no business doing. We've gotten to the point where we expect local government to do a lot of things that really, in my opinion, has no business doing. So I always have to tell people that's not what we do. So I try my very best. I'll meet with anyone anytime. I'll listen to them. I'm respectful to them as long as they are to me, and I'll tell them what I think I can do and what I think the right thing is. I believe people elected me. People always say to me sometimes, hey, you represent me. You work for me. No, I don't. I don't work for you. I have a job. I have a boss, and I have my own secretary. I work for her. But what I do for you is I represent you, and I am elected. My view of what you asked me to do as your mayor is use my brain, my philosophy, my morals to make decisions. And if you don't like the ones I'm making, you can vote me out. And that's what I expect you to do. So people sometimes will think I need to do what they'll say, you need to do what I'm telling you. And that's not how I'm wired. I'll do what I think is the right thing to do. And that's what you elected me to do. And I'll do my best to make it fit into what we do in local government. So there's nothing else really that fun about me. I don't think that's it. Yeah, I am. Well, there's one fun thing. I am the chairman. And I don't know if you ladies know this, but we have a boxing commission in the state of Utah. It's named after Pete Suazo, who was a wonderful man and a promoter of boxing all his life. It's called the Pete Suazo Utah Athletic Commission. And we regulate and manage all combat sports. So kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA, bare knuckle fighting. And we regulate those things. I'm the chair of that commission. It's probably the funnest appointed government job I don't get paid, but I've been to 4 UFC events ringside as part of my job as the chair. So it's pretty good. But that's probably the only thing weird about me. I like that. I always tell my wife, I got to go to the fights. It's part of my deal, part of my job. So anyway.
Thank you. That was,
So I have a question.
yes. We do have Natalie, but
But we can ask each other questions.
we can ask each
Yeah.
other
I
questions
just
for
want-
sure.
As mayor and as council people, how are you, what is the best way for your constituents to convince you to see what they're saying? I mean, what do you expect them to bring to the table? Does that make sense? So, I mean, I assume you want facts, why, if you don't agree with them, what can they do to convince you?
You asking me?
All of them.
Oh yeah. Well, it just depends on what it is. You might not ever convince me, but I'll tell you up front where I'm at with it. But I think you got to go on the facts. The emotion can't be the driver. We make a lot of decisions. People make a lot of decisions on emotion. I've seen it in my law practice. I mean, all humans do. We make emotional decisions. People get mad on the freeway. I've represented lots of people who have made one stupid mistake on the freeway, turning into a road rage incident and ruin their entire career. So I like the facts, and then I want to know. I want all the facts. I don't want some left out. As soon as I think you've left some out, I'm out. I don't. It's really hard to get me back if you have come at me with part of the information, not the whole thing. So for me, it's come in, give me the facts, explain your position, and tell me the whole thing, and then I'm willing to listen.
Rather than go down the line, let's get Natalie into this discussion.
Yeah.
Come on, Natalie, turn yourself back on. There she is. Can you hear us and we can hear you okay? Speak.
I hope so. I think my internet's starting to be unstable, so I was hoping maybe you guys would go back the line, and then I wouldn't have to interrupt the natural flow that's already happening on the panel.
Natalie, before you do your whole spiel, could you please explain one thing? I think for all of us, there are 3 council members at large, A, B, and C. You are C. What does that mean?
C is just the district, that's just what they decided to title it. So there are 2 different structures that a county government can decide. They could either be a commission or a council structure. A commission is what the county council was before, I believe, 2000. And a commission means that you're basically like a division director. When you choose to go to a council structure, you can decide how many people you want to be a part of that council. So 25 years ago, they decided that they wanted 6, maybe it was 6 districts, but they wanted districts and at large. And that's where we have the 9. So A, B, and C just represents different at-large districts, but there's not a real difference of like who we cover. We all cover the entire county. It just helps with elections and knowing who's up for office.
Thank you for answering that. And
A, B, and C was designed in the election rotation. They've got the 6 districts for the individuals, the 3 at large cover the entire county, but they labeled them so they would know when they would come up in the election.
I see.
Because you only rotate certain jobs during the year, so you don't end up with a whole new council every year.
Gotcha. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you, Anne. I was hoping you would chime in. So awesome.
Now you carry on with your 10 to 15 minutes.
Yes. So my spiel, I think relationships was at the heart of this question, and that's actually what got me into politics. So before I even showed up at a volunteer education workshop, because that's how I got started, I never really thought I would be involved in politics. I was actually a political activist. I got started with Black Lives Matter and protesting and being on the street. So I didn't really feel like politics was my lens whatsoever. I said in my bio, my master's is in educational leadership and policy. That emphasis was in higher education. So in that program, I studied the value of education, not just higher education, but all education, why we had education, why George Washington invested in public schools, why Truman believed in free public universities. And I came to the term that all of our problems in the United States came from a lack of education. And at the time, I was in a romantic relationship with my now husband, who was in law school. And I told him how passionate I was about education and how I believed education was a right. And he said to me, well, it's not a right. And I said, yes, it is. And he said, no, it's literally not a right. The Supreme Court in 2007 said it was not a right. And that made me, I would say, passionate, but a better word is pissed off, because I disagreed. And so I started protesting even more. And I was like, well, who's in charge of the Supreme Court? And I learned it was the President of the United States of America. And I said, well, who's in charge of the President of the United States of America? And it was the people. So my passion landed me at a deep canvassing training. If you don't know what deep canvassing is, it's when someone comes to your house and usually they'll talk to you for about 30 seconds about an election and they want you to vote for them. But deep canvassing did something different. It wanted to get to the values and common ground of people at the door. So instead of us just doing 30 seconds, we said, what if we spent 5 or even 15 minutes connecting with someone in a neighborhood? What if our differences was just because no one's come to a door to give attention to residents? So I was really passionate about that candidate and I joined that campaign. I became a super volunteer so much that one day he asked me to be his campaign manager. It was a Democratic primary in a very blue district. So, the Democrat was going to win, and the election was going to be over in June. It was an underdog race, and we did lose, but we lost by 55 votes. That June, I joined another race, which was Andrew Stoddard. He was running, and I helped his team win, and I got the bug from there. I started going on more campaigns, and eventually someone tapped me on the shoulder to run for office. Which you don't know, most women, that's actually how they start to run for office. Someone has to ask them, and usually has to ask them multiple times, because the first time they'll laugh. And I did the same thing. I laughed and I didn't believe I should run for office because, again, I was on the activist side. I wasn't on the political side. I did decide to run, and I got elected in 2019, started knocking doors with people. And then in 2020 was my first year, went to 3 months of in-person city council meetings until March 18th of 2020, when the governor tweeted out that the state was locked down. And I spent a lot of my time actually in this room serving my first term on city council. It was not just an earthquake. It wasn't just a pandemic. It was also an uprising for the Black Lives Matter movement, the same movement that got me involved in politics. And I love what the mayor said about being a troublemaker, because I think that's what I did when I first got on the council, was that I was a little bit of a troublemaker because of my activism background. And I just felt like at the time we had to do something. We had to say something. We had to respond to the financial jeopardy that our residents were in South Salt Lake. We're one of the poorest cities in the county and one of the most diverse. So when people were getting furloughed, when they needed mutual aid, that was first in South Salt Lake. And I delivered groceries to those residents, even in the pandemic, talking to our neighbors to see what they needed, and help to create the different financial empowerment center and different initiatives that I've created. But that's really what the core of local government is. I think for the longest, what has been broken in our system is that our national government has forgotten that our local government are the people who talk to the folks at the door, who knows what families need childcare, what family is struggling. That's going to be your city council members and your planning commissioners and your community councils. And those are supposed to be the representatives that then talk to your state leaders and to your congressional leaders, so that we can pass legislation and move things forward. So that's what's really been the heart of my race, and what made me decide to then jump in the county council, and wanting to have a bigger input with people, and to keep that going with talking with over 25,000 doors at the county. And every year I've committed to making sure I'm going to a neighborhood and connecting with families more, because I think that is what's really at the heart. And I think it is very timely with us talking about saving democracy at a local level, because every year our democracy does get chipped away. And that is even from 1776. Alexander Hamilton had to write the Federalist Papers to convince people to pass a constitution. And there was a whole other movement that went against that talked about it the entire time. And that's continued even today. Our liberty is something that costs us our time, costs us the responsibility to talk to our neighbors, to get to know our neighbors, to show up to events like this, and to hold representatives like myself accountable. So I hope that covered all of it. I don't know if that was 10 minutes, and hopefully you heard all that.
Well, it certainly is an impassioned description of how you got here. And, I think just to try to summarize what all of you have brought to the table, we've heard a lot about the east and west part of our county. We know, as you know, the League of Women Voters is primarily concerned about voting rights. And of course, a huge part of what we do is to register voters all over. And it is actually, I think our focus is in West Valley City. Do we have anybody who's organizing that here to confirm that? But we concentrate a lot that way, and we are constantly engaging at our events with individuals and people. And it makes us wonder, how much do you know about what we do? And I'm not going to test you here. I don't think we have to, but hopefully what I want to do is thank you because you've given us a human side of who you are, and you're getting to see, and we're about to go into a Q&A kind of situation where you'll get to answer the constituent question. And that's how we need to be engaged. And in order to really do that, the League of Women Voters ups their energy in terms of getting more and more volunteers. And I'm not here to say, but when you leave this room, we want you to volunteer for us, because I know that that's it certainly make reference that we are a resource in the community when you do talk to your constituents. But you lead full lives and you've got families, and we want to thank you for the important work that you're all doing, whether it was to in the future, past or present. And I'd like to turn it over now to Betty, who will talk a little more about the volunteer corps of our observers, especially because I really think that it's not just these elected officials you'll be working with if you decide to become an observer corps volunteer. It's also their staffs, and hopefully them on the streets or in the stores or on the phone. But let's, as we answer more questions, let's keep it on the constituent level and engagement, so that we can see if we come away with any solutions. How do we increase that effort?
We're going to change it up a little and go to the questions first, if that's okay. Yes, we just decided, sorry.
Nobody told me.
You're over there.
Negotiation.
I don't think I could write big enough to say.
We're bendable. Let's go to the Q&A. And we're going to do it live, right? First the in-person, and you can come to any one of these microphones, correct?
Correct, yes. So,
And-
and also if you have questions of each other, Natalie, if you have some questions you want to ask each other, this would be.
Yeah, challenge each other
And then
too.
we'll take, if you do in the live audience, there's microphone right there. You can go there. And if you're on chat, if you're on Zoom, you can ask a question in chat, and our AV person, specialist Lee, will tell us what the question is. So.
I'd like to make one observation about government in general that we keep in our mind. My very favorite author, Michael Lewis, did an interview with President Obama, and he was asking him about government in general. And he said, you've got to remember, by time it gets to the government level, it's the hard answers. Everything that is easy or is going to produce monetary value has been taken up by the private sector. They're not going to deal with the hard things that come to government. So always remember, when you're in government, you're dealing with the hard things that nobody else can make any money off of.
Come on, you guys, come up and ask a question. Ask them if they want to play pickleball tomorrow. Something.
I want to.
Here comes.
I want to ask the panelists.
Yeah.
Having been a veteran of the mask war of 2019, even though you are close to your constituents, they don't all have the same opinion. So how do you deal with constituents that are mad that you didn't vote for what they wanted to? And I'm sure Natalie sees plenty of that.
The mask war really is what brought people. It really is what brought people out and filled our chambers, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that. Come on.
Well, I remember being on a call on the eve of the shutdown, the lockdown. I was on a call with Mayor Wilson and several other mayors. We were on a call with the Centers for Disease Control, And I remember this, I can't remember who the government official was, but he threw out some number about how many people they expected to die in the next week. And it was the very beginning. And it was like, I'm probably not going to say the number right, but it was north of 10 million. They didn't say it was going to happen. He said, we think this could kill 10 million people in the next week. And I remember I was sitting in my study and I thought to myself, we'll be damn lucky to have a country if it kills 10 people in a week. I mean, it would bring the country to a crazy. I saw that movie Contagion literally like a month before the pandemic. And I was like, I was like, I sat there, I was contemplating, and I never thought in my life I would be thinking, well, we might have a complete civil breakdown and I'm the mayor of a city. Wow. Why did I run for that? Of course, my goal, and I'm not a doctor, I'm a lawyer. So I didn't want to get sick. I didn't want people I love to get sick. Nobody knew at the beginning what it was really going to be. My philosophy was, let's do everything we can to just make sure we don't get each other sick. And so I took this path of, I wasn't out there, trying to mask the world. I wasn't out there trying to unmask it. I was just like, look, I got to have cops that can come to your house if you're in trouble. I got to have firemen that can show up. They got to be protected. They got to be isolated. They got to wear the mask. We can't have the whole fire department get sick. That was my biggest worry, was we wouldn't have public safety because everyone would be sick. So we took the position that we were going to comply and do, what we had to do to make sure people could function. And I have people mad. Some people are like, you buy into all this stuff, this flu or whatever it was. And, at the beginning, I didn't get it until it probably had mutated a lot more, but I still got really sick from it. And I'm a pretty healthy person and I didn't like it. But my approach was, look, we got to be reasonable and we got to work together. We got to look out for each other, because at the end of the day, we all need each other to function. And so I just took that approach. But again, there were people that were very upset, that we did it too long, or I remember, I think the thing they got the most upset about was we canceled homecoming, that was probably, we made them cancel homecoming, and man, they were mad about that. I got a lot of calls about that. And I'm like, well, I don't think that, with this virus out there, we ought to be going to dances with each other. But, anyway, and then of course they had their own little homecomings that were off the grid and all that kind of stuff. And then people are like, you need to go arrest all them. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. So it was I just tried to stay in the reasonable train of, I wore a mask when I was around people and tried to just, we set up testing to try to get people back to work. We funded it from our own city money, and we were trying to get people, functioning, but I just tried to, sit in the right spot of keep the city functioning and not listen to the extremes.
We have 2 questions from Zoom participants. Would you like me to read them?
Yes.
What strategies can ensure local officials represent average people over corporations and the wealthy? And then there's a second question. I'll wait for that one.
Who wants to take that one first? Cindy.
So I'll go ahead. When I was in that open interview, and one of the questions was, what would you do to represent the people in your district when you're approached by outside sources? And I've had a experience with that recently, in that there is a developer that signed a development agreement in 2020 to develop this piece of ground, and interest rates were low, things like that. And now he's wanting to come in and change that because the economy is different. So the challenge is the neighbors who built those expensive homes don't want it changed because it's going to affect them. So the balance there is listening to a developer, but also listening to the residents that directly affects. And you have to really, for me, my focus was on supporting my residents, also trying to help the developer, but and it's now come to the point where he's willing to give some things in exchange for possibly changing that development agreement. But I'll always represent my residents and you know, that's the bottom line, because I would want to be represented. So.
I'd like to also answer this question. I think that's a really great question. There's a couple of things that come to mind. I think the biggest thing is asking the person who's running for office or running for reelection, you know, to name a time where they have stood up for residents versus corporations and the wealthy. You know, look at their track record, look at what they've done, and even if they haven't ran before, you know, what have they done in the community? I think it's really important that before people, you know, run for office, that they're involved in the community overall and have shown their credibility to the community in that way. I think another way is more people getting involved. The more that everyday voters are involved in local campaigns at a city council level, sometimes most districts, maybe 200 people vote. And a lot of times those candidates have no help on their campaign. And the only people who are willing to help are corporations and the wealthy. But if we supplement that with everyday people who can volunteer their time or pitch in $5 or can help out these candidates more and more, we'll see elected officials and we'll see politicians and candidates who show up who want to continue to stay on the side of the people. So I think it's really multi-pronged approach. Getting involved in organizations like this is a really good way too, because you get to see the people who are involved at different levels of the government and how it works and where we can place more people. And I think the more of us in the room, right? If we every day met 5 people a day that we were inviting to go on you know, Erica Carlson's, you know, campaign to help her out, or someone else, like, you know, if imagine what we were doing in our everyday lives when we're talking to our coworkers or going to the mall or interacting with our families. And I think the more we can all have that responsibility that I'm a community leader, to find other leaders in my community who can want to get involved and who can pitch in, the less that we can worry about corporations and the wealthy having more of an ear to elected officials than everyday voters. And at the end of the day, there are more of us than corporations cannot vote. You know, they might be a person, but they can't vote. And there are more everyday people than wealthy people. We just have to empower them to get involved.
There's a lot of nuance that goes along with a lot of these decisions that a lot of times the public does not see. So if you are transparent and you invite them in to discuss it, one example was last year when the county voted to move the office building, and there was a discussion of moving the office building, and people were very leery of it. And they said, well, why are you spending this much money when you've got a building? Well, this building had $250 million in deferred maintenance on it. So then you get down into a deeper discussion, and with an accounting background and a legal background, you weigh some of the nuance. If you're open to people and you explain it to people and the explanation is reasonable, people will understand. If you try to hide it in the mouse print from your credit card, people aren't going to understand. So the key to dealing honestly and fairly and openly with your constituency usually gets you the outcome that is appropriate. And you're not always going to get everybody on board with it. It just doesn't happen.
Those are great. Do you want to, is there a second part to the question? Let's have George. Come on.
I want to get a sense of the diversity of things that you deal with. And I know you've all got a lot on your plates. So I just want to ask, like, what's at the top of your list right now? Even if it's just something that's emergent that came up today and is on the top of your list. Or something that's been going on for 2 years and maybe you're just about done with it. What's on the top of your list?
I can tell you what's on the top of my list, and it is 100% the increasing cost of municipal services. when I was elected as a council member, my first year, you could pave a 60-foot wide, 1 mile piece of road for about $600,000. That same 60-foot wide, 1 mile asphalt's about $1.8 million. Now, that's a fact. I'm not making that up. When I bought my first fire truck, when we started our fire department, we bought our first fire truck. I actually went to the fire truck store. That was the coolest thing I've ever done. We bought our first fire truck for about $680,000. That same fire truck, we just bought another one because that one's wore out now or coming up. That same fire truck's $2.2 million. And it takes 2 years to get it. When I first started, you had a plethora of young people that want to be police officers. People wanted to be police officers. And there's a whole lot of reasons why people don't or do and whatever, but we didn't have a hard time finding people to be police officers. We do now. I think it's an impending crisis in this country that people aren't even paying attention to because people don't want to do it. I have a 200-member youth council, and I've asked them for 6 years in a row, how many of you want to be police officers? For the last 6 years, it's been 0 kids. 0. How many want to be firefighters? 0. 0 kids. How many of you want to go in the military? Still 1% do. My 2 boys serve in the military, so I'm proud of that. But that's my worry. And as we have a tighter pool, it's hard to find good police officers, but you have to pay so much more money to do it. And we fight with each other. If West Valley raises their pay $2, $3, then I'll have some officers go there. I might raise my, and it's just, it is what it is. So you see these tax increases we're doing as cities and everybody's up in arms about it. I'm just telling you, the cost of these services it's the number one concern. From asphalt to people to, gasoline, it's all gone up and we still have to provide them. And you want that firefighter and you want the best paramedic, you want a modern ambulance, you want to be able to get to the hospital and so those are the things I'm most worried about. And they're not, I don't see a let off in it. I don't see the prices coming down. So I'm concerned about it.
A lot of it is what you bring in experience to the public service that really helps. My background in medical and in Medicaid made my understanding of why the county was asking to fund MCOT teams. So instead of just scooping someone up off the street and dumping them in jail, you took them to the Huntsman where they needed, because they needed mental health service. And at that time, they weren't going to get it in jail. And Natalie's now involved with the great work that the county jail is doing because they are expanding mental health and Medicaid into the jail. But you see how each of these different things feed into the cost of what it takes to run a city. And you can come up with some answers based on a broad approach, city to city, county to county, sharing resources.
So the increased costs, it goes into what I'm concerned about. And I think the most people in the state is our housing, especially for our young people. I have a adult son, college graduate with a great job. He can't afford to live. You add a car payment and just general living expenses. So I keep telling people that we need to try to find a way to fix this. And this affordable housing is now starting at $500,000. Well, it's not affordable. And that's because it costs more to build the road. It costs more to put the sewer in. It costs, just all of that. So I'm not sure how we're going to fix it, but I think we don't give up. I think we still try to do our best and provide the services and support that we can where we can. The other thing that this has caused is creating what I'll refer to as a boarding house type thing. I'm sure you all see in your neighborhoods that people are renting out parts of their home to help cover their costs or to provide someone someplace to live. And yeah, you might not like those extra cars parked next to you, but that person probably needs a place to live. And so I think it's a a problem that we're all experiencing throughout the county, throughout the state, throughout the country. And all we can do is keep trying to come up with ways that we can provide places for people to live.
And that's what's nice about the collaboration. The county came up with the ADU
Yes.
plan and cities adopted that, where you could either build an ADU in your basement under certain criteria, or you could build something additionally in your house. So the ability of cities and counties to meet together and strategize one good idea can spread beyond the boundaries of a city.
I'll add in that housing is also really important for me as well. I really found in my time on the city council that affordable housing is really only targeting deeply affordable, and it's really based off of the AMI, which is like the average median income. And a lot of times, what the federal government actually considers under the AMI that our developers are using is really not congruent with reality. So what we actually are missing isn't affordable housing. There's a lot of initiatives from moderate income to what the county is doing for us doing affordable housing. What we're missing is attainable housing. And that's why we have a lot of Gen Zers or even millennials my age or more, right? Our elderly folk who are on fixed income, feeling the burdens of our current inflation. So affordable housing, attainable and affordable housing is top of mind for me right now. My office is currently working on a framework where we can, just like Ann said, reach beyond our border and reach with cities right now to help them not only with their moderate income housing plans, but to say what type of housing are we building for young professionals from young families. That's why a lot of our families are moving more south and the southwest, because that's where most of the development is happening. And that does mean that some of our cities up north are going to maybe feel a little discomfort in that growth, because more high density is going to be pushed to the north of our county versus lower density to the south of our county. But it's also uncomfortable too. If you go down to Bluffdale, they don't like more single family homes everywhere as well. But our growth isn't just because of people coming out of state. We know here in Utah, we like to have a lot of children, and those children do have to grow up. So we're providing a future for our families and for our big families that we love so much. But that's top of mind for me is housing, and actually what I'm currently working on.
You got another online question. What can we do to stop political violence?
I was so impressed with what Governor Cox said recently. He coined a term that I think needs to spread nationwide. When he gave his address, he said, "We have got conflict entrepreneurs running our narrative," meaning that we have got people that are making money off of us, and we are paying to be siloed into a situation where the only thing I see is people I agree with. If we can educate people and get them off of this rage machine system that we're in, I think we may find that that would make a significant difference.
So I think on a local level, how we can help that, and I don't see, I mean, things happen, but it's to get to know our neighbors, get to know our community and provide support, because lots of times the anger comes because people are frustrated and they might need some resources. So that's what I would like to do on a local level. I mean, there's not a whole lot we can do on a local level, but just to let people know that they do have people there to support them. And if they come into a crisis and they feel like they are angry about something, that maybe open up and talk to a local government officials, see if we can help them work through that or point them in the right direction. In fact, I went to a national night out, and there was at this particular meeting, there were just like 5 to 10 people there, and there was a young couple there. And, I told them about voting and things like that. And I said, what are some things in the city that you're concerned about? And the woman said, what's available for mental health issues in West Valley City. I could really use that. So I think that's how we can combat people becoming frustrated and angry, is to provide resources and services. So.
I'll also respond to this question as well. Unfortunately, political violence has been really common for me during my tenure. As I stated before this, I was involved in activism, but even just knocking on doors sometimes can be a little scary, and sometimes I think, Anne, you said earlier, my experience talking to people who disagree with me, you know, that happens sometimes at a door, right? You'll be in a conversation and now we are at complete polar opposites, and you see that conditioning that has been fed to us in our screen in person. And I think one of the things I've said since those experiences is that more of us need to talk to our neighbors, because sometimes we get so conditioned. So what we hear on the TV screen, we forget that the person in front of us at the door is a human being. And I think the humanity of it all is being disconnected because of our politics. In a democracy, that does mean that we're going to have politics and things are going to be politicized, but the part of that democracy is the ability to be tolerant of other people's opinions. And I do think that we have to, in a lot of ways, come together as a society to figure out what direction we want to be in. But I do think that the way to stop political violence is by us starting to talk to each other more, and not just the people that we like, but being brave to knock on doors in neighborhoods that we live, in neighborhoods that we don't live, talk to people that we disagree with, is going to be the only way that we accept that we don't stand for violence.
Are there any other questions from the audience, either in person or on Zoom? Nope. Okay. So we will now turn it over to Betty. So it was very, I think it was you, Anne, but someone said, what can we do? And more people get involved, more people get involved, more people vote, especially local. And so what Betty's going to talk about is one way that you can get involved in the league and make a difference.
So, like has been stated, get involved, get active, write letters, talk to family to do things, schedule a meeting with your local representative, email, phone calls, let your, thank them for what you agree with, make suggestions for things you don't agree with, make sure you know the facts. Like I think
The CPA
Government-
said.
yes. Yeah, I think it was
Know the numbers.
it was the
know
lawyer.
facts.
Yeah. Look things up, get involved. The Observer Corps goes to city council meetings, county council meetings, planning board meetings. There's someone going to the Great Salt Lake. Always forget what the C is. It's the combined group, but it's not combined. Coalition, thank you. If I brought my other water bottle, I would have it. If we observe what's going on, we report back. If there's something going on where people being there may impact a decision, we can send out an alert and let people in that area know this is what's happening, this is what they're discussing. If you show up and have an opinion and are available and would like to sway this decision potentially one way or another, please come. I went totally off script, so sorry. Yes. I'm creating an updated list. We just got a bunch of new interest, and some people are willing to report wherever there's not coverage. So I'll be setting up a training. Well, I'll be creating the list and setting up a training, so we will have more coverage than we have had in the recent past. It's important to get involved. If you're interested, contact me either after the meeting, or my contact information is actually on the Observer Corps portion of the website.
Yeah, we also have a handout. Susan has one of all of the, how many are there?
Well, this is a table, excuse me, a table I made of our Salt Lake County Council, all 9 members, ways to contact them. It also shows what their priority concerns are and what their jurisdiction is, portfolio. So if you want to take this, you'll have contact phone numbers and email addresses where you can begin to have those conversations in your district, or even if it's not in your district, that let them know who you are. They love to hear from you. If they don't hear from you, they'll make decisions on their own. So now's the time to do it at this local level. And on the back of this table, I've put the mayor of Salt Lake County and who all her deputy mayors are and what they oversee, whether it's the Office of Regional Development or fiscal management. Those are the places, and those people respect phone calls too, to find out. They do look at you as their boss, and they will return your call and answer your questions or point you in the right direction. So I've done this just for Salt Lake County, but it's the type of thing that if you get involved in your own cities, you can do for your constituents. And then we get people knowing confidence to show up, because that's what we really have to do. We have got to show up. And there's like 25 of these if you want to take one.
So also Betty, if you're interested, if you go to the League of Women Voters website, excuse me, there's a link to Observer Corps, and you can sign up to be an Observer Corps volunteer, and Betty will get back to you. And then if you want to be one, she can contact the city or whoever, let them know so-and-so is interested in coming and being an Observer Corps volunteer in your city.
And if you'd also just like to receive the reports, we do have a separate email set up so you can receive reports from all of the Observer Corps.
Okay, last call for questions. Okay, I think that we are, oh, Shelley has a question.
When it comes to advocacy, is there a best way to contact you guys, a way that you prefer or that gets the most attention?
I love an email.
Okay.
And then I also like people to share their name and their address and their phone number. I get emails from people and it'll just say Sue. And it's like, Sue, I'd like to come and talk with you. So for me, I mean, phone call, but in this world we lived in today, email is good. For me, that's good. Email, second, phone call.
Okay.
I like to talk to people. I like people that call me, leave me a message, I call them back. I really like to talk to people more than I like to respond to emails. I'll do it, but I like public comment. People come to the meeting, they can make a comment, they can talk to me, and I'll talk to anyone. My cell phone number, I give it to people. I'm happy to talk to people, and that's the way I like to do it.
Okay.
Natalie, how do you want to be?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me would be my cell phone, so call, texting, and email. Especially if it's something that's urgent, please call, or I would say please text me first. I don't actually like voicemails. I rather a text or an email. And then if it's something that we need to talk about or meet up, like, I'm happy to chat, but email is great because I can loop in my senior policy advisor and we can always schedule a call or schedule a meeting.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, I think this is the end of our panel discussion and our Q&A. I'm going to just, one more question.
Do all of you have a separate profession, or is this a full-time job for Jimmy?
Most of these are part-time
They're not
volunteer
full-time.
jobs.
Yeah, mayor in Draper City is a part-time position. So I have I have a law practice I still run, so.
And Salt Lake County Council is a part-time position.
Part-time, I'm a magazine
Okay, so
publisher.
I'm just going to make a very short some announcements about the league, and then we'll close the meeting. So we have coming up in October, our topic for the general meeting is the media crisis. And what does the media landscape look like in Utah? So we have a great set of panelists. And so that will be October 15th in this building and on Zoom. We have our unit meetings. We have East Bench Movers and Shakers on the 22nd of September, Nightingales, Tuesday, September 23rd, Town Club, Thursday, October 2nd, and Wasatch Back, October 21st. And we're having our holiday party at the Holiday City Hall on December 4th. So is there any other announcements? Shauna?
Tomorrow is we're going to start a new Avenues unit, and tomorrow is their first meeting. And so it's on the website too. So
yeah, and on the website you can see all the contact information for the unit meetings. And I've started going some since I got into this position, and it's usually a pretty small group, and just have great discussion and a lot of like-minded people that you can talk to. So, okay, Linda Smith.
If I could add about the October meeting, which you mentioned is October 15th. It'll be both a Utah meeting and a Salt Lake meeting. And the journalists that are coming are Elaine Clark, who's from KUER, the news director, Robert Gerke, who everyone of course knows from the Salt Lake Tribune, Emily Means, formerly from KUER and now engaged in digital media, Max Roth, who is from Fox 13. I think he's the news director, and then a professor from the University of Utah Communication Department, or Poli-Sci Communication, the University of Utah, Jake Nelson. It's going to be a really great discussion about the crisis the media faces, and the media being very important to addressing, these are local media folks, to addressing the community concerns. Our November meeting is going to deal with advocacy, and we're going to have Representative Doug Owens, his son. Yeah, he's coming back from heaven. No, he will not arrive from heaven. It will be Representative Doug Owens that will talk about convincing the legislature with a particular attention to the Salt Lake situation, and Professor Tom Hucken from the Rhetoric Department, emeritus from the Rhetoric Department at the U of U. It's going to be great in preparing us to advocate for the legislative session. And we're also going to have an online advocacy workshop. Watch your mail for that. Thanks.
Okay, so in closing, I really want to thank our panelists, Anne and Cindy and Troy and Natalie. Yes, and thank you to all the audience, the members and the guests for coming. And I want to recognize our AV specialist, Lee. He does the hard work. Thank you. I think we'll close.